Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host. And in this show, I'm going to talk to you about a change in the global ranking. India has slipped to sixth rank in the global GDP. If you recall, for the last 2, 3 years, one of the biggest themes and one of the most important topics of Prime Minister Modi's narrative about India, about the India story, was this constant mentioning that India is the fastest growing economy in the world, the fastest growing major economy in the world. And India had surpassed Great Britain to become the fifth biggest economy. And then there was all this predictions that in the beginning of the year of 2025, that IMF and others had predicted that India would, by the end of the year 2025, overtake Japan to become the fourth biggest economy, and Japan would slip to the fifth ranking. But as we approached the end of the year, something happened, and as a result of that, India failed to overtake Japan and become the fourth biggest economy. And on the contrary, and now the rankings that have come out today suggest that India has actually slipped and gone behind Great Britain, and India is now not the fourth, not the fifth, the sixth biggest economy in the world, behind the United States, China, Germany, Japan, and Great Britain. So we will unpack what this really means. Is this just a statistical error, or is this an indication? Surely the Great Britain's economy is not doing better than India's. India had overtaken Great Britain or UK's economy in 2022. That was nearly 4 years ago, or 3.5 years ago, in September 2022 to be exact. So the British economy has not been doing great. It's growing barely at 1%. So how does Great Britain's economy become bigger than India's? So those are some of those issues that I will unpack for you today. But first, let's look at all the reports. There are a lot of people who come and watch my show and sometimes say I'm making these things up to make India look bad. No, I don't need to make up anything. Here are the facts. So if you go and just do a search, you will find that these are all Indian newspapers, by the way: the New Indian Express, the Business Today, Business Standard, the Wire. This is the headline in all of these major Indian publications. Some are trying to explain why India slipped to the sixth spot in IMF GDP rankings despite strong growth. India falls to sixth largest economy behind UK. That's the New Indian Express title. Business Today: growing fast yet slipping, why India dropped to sixth in IMF GDP rankings. And the Wire says, far from being the fourth largest, India slips to number 6 on the global GDP rankings. So these are the headlines, and this is the headlines that I saw. I'm actually here in Rome, packing to go back to the United States, inshallah, soon. So I did. I had no intention of actually doing this show. I've already done 2 shows today. But when I saw this, I said, oh my God, I have to comment on this. So I'm going to show you some data straight from the IMF's report. The IMF comes up with these quarterly global economic outlook reports. So the April report is out. The data is as current as April 14th. So I will show you the data. I will then tell you what it means in terms of geopolitics, in terms of rankings, etc. And then I'll try to perhaps explain why India's ranking has really slipped, even though India continues to grow faster than all these economies. In fact, India definitely has a higher growth rate than both Great Britain and Japan. And it's not as if Japan and UK have economies that are much bigger than India's, so that even though you have a smaller growth rate, the actual growth in dollars is more. So we will look at that. So what does this do really? So this is the cartoon, or this is the infographic that is floating around, widely shared. The United States has jumped to $32.38 trillion. $32.38 trillion is the US at number 1, followed by China, which is $20.85 billion. These are all nominal rates. Germany is in the third place with $5.45 trillion. Japan is in the fourth place, $4.38 trillion. So if you remember the forecasts that were made by many banks, including IMF, in the early 2025, they had predicted that both Japan and India would be less than $4.2 trillion. India would be 4.187 and Japan would be 4.186. And that's how India would become the fourth biggest economy, surpassing Japan. That was the prediction in the beginning of the year 2025. But if you look at it, India has underperformed slightly. So from 4.187 prediction, India has gone to 4.15, and Japan has actually performed better than the predictions made by IMF and other economists. So at fifth place, you have Great Britain at $4.26 trillion, and then India at $4.15 trillion in the sixth spot. So India was, there was all these assumptions and statements coming, especially from the prime minister, that India is going to overtake Germany and become the third biggest economy by 2030. Maybe it still can. This is just 2026. We have 4 more years. But right now, India is not in the top five economies. It is the sixth biggest economy. And then France is in number seven position. Italy is in eighth position. Russia has climbed up to the ninth position. And then you have Brazil in the 10th position. I just included 11 and 12 to show you who is coming behind them. Canada slipped out of the top 10. So if you now look at the top 10, you notice that China, India, Russia, and Brazil are now in the top 10. These are the BRIC countries. So four, except for South Africa, which is not in there. In G20, you have Saudi Arabia, Indonesia are part of the top 20 from BRICS. But what you see right now is that of the top 10 countries, six are G7 countries, which is obviously US, Germany, Japan, Great Britain, France, and Italy. These are part of G7. So in the top eight, you have six of the G7 countries are there, and then only China and India are part of top eight. And ninth and 10th are also BRIC countries. So this is the global ranking. So that at the moment, this is what will remain. It is quite possible that this ranking could change next year or maybe towards the end of the quarter. I also want to remind you guys that if in March, I did a conversation with two prominent economists, if you remember, Dr. Santosh Mehrotra and Dr. Amirullah Khan. And based on that conversations, I had written this article in the Diplomat. India is not the fourth biggest economy in the world, but does that really matter? So by then, it was very clear, even to me, that India is not going to be the fourth biggest economy. It was going to slip behind. So where is this coming from, this data? This data is coming from this report, The Global Economy in the Shadow of War, April 2026. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where the data is. A lot of you are very skeptical. They just listen to government-sponsored media, and then you don't. So let me share the screen and first tell you where this is coming from. This is coming from this report from the Global Economy in the Shadow of War. This is the World Economic Outlook published by IMF. And you can go and look at all the data that you want. This is their annual report. So this is where all the data is. So if you actually download the data sheet, it's a very complex Excel sheet, and it makes things a bit too complicated. So to understand that, you have to go to a simpler version, would be to go to a place called, let me share it with you. Worldometer. So if you go to Worldometer, it is GDP by country 2026 IMF report. So what they did was they took the data and they summarized it in a manner which is very easy for us to see. Okay, GDP by country 2026. So I'm going to walk you through this data, and so you can take a look at it. Okay, let me. Oops. Here it is. So you can see this is the data of the countries. And so the number one country is obviously the United States, and at $32 trillion, and then China, and so on. So these are the world rankings. Japan six. So for those of you people are very curious about who's coming next, so you can see on the 11th, 12th, also the subsequent ranking. 11th is Canada, Australia, Mexico, Spain, South Korea. Turkey is at number 16 spot. Indonesia is 17. Indonesia is part of BRICS. Saudi Arabia is part of BRICS, 19. And Switzerland is in the top 20. And so these are the rankings. Well, Indians are particularly interested in Pakistan. So Pakistan is ranked 45 but right now they are using only 2025 data for Pakistan. I don't know why. This is the projection for Pakistan that it will be $407 billion. So it's not even half a trillion. It is, if you notice, less than Bangladesh, which is 37 at 510. So Bangladesh is $100 billion more than Pakistan in its turnover, even though the population of Pakistan is probably 50 to 70 million more. So you can see, I will be showing you more data so you'll get a sense of where we are going with this. And the rest, so you can see they rank about 160, 190. Oh, wow. They have 218 countries ranked here. The smallest country is Tuvalu at $65 million. It's a really very low GDP. So this is rankings by GDP, but I want to show you something which is much more troubling, which is GDP per capita. So the United States GDP per capita has really jumped up to $94,000. So I should feel rich. So now $94,000 is the per capita of the United States. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody in the US has that much money. What it really means is that's the average of the country. But look at the other data that I'm going to show you. So if you look at China, which is number 2, so China has just reached the benchmark for a high income economy. 14,874 is the per capita of China. Germany is obviously very rich at 65,000. You can see the difference. Japan is at 35,000. United Kingdom is not doing badly at all, 61,000. And then look at the drop to India. India's GDP per capita is $2,800. That's it. See the anomaly in the top 10. These are the top 10 countries, and the poorest country in the top 10 is Brazil. And Russia, in spite of after the war, it is still at 18,000. It has been at war for 4 years. Its economy is safe, facing so much sanctions, yet the per capita income is 18,000. That tells you the quality of life is far, far superior in Russia than, say, in India, which is 2. So India really is a very poor country in the top 10. Canada is 60. Look at Australia, 75,000. And then you have Mexico, 15. Even if you look at G20, the second poorest country, or the poorest country in G20 is Indonesia at $5,000 per capita. The term Viksit Bharat that Prime Minister Modi keeps using is right now at around 4,000 something. So Indonesia is already surpassed what is the vision for India's 2047 vision of Viksit Bharat. So Indonesia today is bigger, or shall we say richer, in terms of per capita income than what would be India's dream of becoming, which is Viksit Bharat. So this is a very troubling data. This is what Indians don't talk about it. Prime Minister Modi never talks about it. He's always talking about GDP growth, GDP growth. We are number three, we are number four, we are number five, we're going to become three, and so on, because that number looks good. But that is not a true indication of India. It doesn't mean that India is a rich country, even though it is sixth biggest economy in the world. It just says that India has a huge population of 1,400 million. So if you look at, for example, look at these countries. UK is at 4.26, is just 65 million people. India is less than UK, but India is nearly 1.4 billion people more than UK. India is like 146 crores people, whereas UK is just 6 crores. So then you get an idea of why this is so poor. But I'm going to show you something else which is going to shock you guys. So I'm going to look at the rank. So right now what you are seeing is ranking by GDP. Okay. So US is number one and so on. This is the rank. But now I'm going to show you GDP per capita ranking. And the richest country in the world is Monaco, the little tiny island, tiny country near Switzerland and France, which is a 256 per capita. These are tiny countries with very high GDP per capita. Singapore is at 107, Norway is 100, and so on. So in terms of GDP per capita, you can see that the US this is the US rank on that. But if you go down, I'm going to give you a shock if you are from India. So be prepared for this shock. So even countries like Brazil, Turkmenistan, Albania are doing better than India. So the quality of life of generally people is much better if you have so much. Uh, these are all upper income economies from here onwards, from 14.5. So you could say that from Argentina onwards, Argentina, maybe at this point, from China onwards, all countries are high income. These are upper middle income economies going all the way down, 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 down to, say, here, Indonesia. Now, look at this. Look at Bhutan. Bhutan's GDP per capita is $4,739. 4,867. This is Bhutan. And this is not adjustments to any purchasing power parity or anything. This is straight up nominal per GDP per capita. So this is one of it's a pretty rich country. And then you see after that you go down and then you will have below 3,000. You have even poor countries like Mauritania and then Bangladesh. This is the shock that I was telling you about. Bangladesh is at 2,911, and Cambodia, and then India. So per capita income of Bangladesh is higher than India's. And this, by the way, Bihar, if you remember, I just did a whole show on Bihar. Bihar's per capita income is $800. Bengal is about like 2,000 or less. All these states, northeastern states of India, are way more poorer than Bangladesh. So all these acquisitions that Bangladeshis are migrating to India kind of does not make sense. They are just attacking Indian Muslims in those states and labeling them Bangladesh. So Bangladesh GDP is higher than India's. Pakistan, of course, is way below. It is somewhere here. You can see Pakistan is at 1696, and Nepal is below that. The poorest country in the world, second poorest, is Afghanistan with 448. This is really poor. Of course, Yemen is even poorer. And so then if you keep going up, 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 you can see Nepal then comes at 1,500. So Nepal is the second poorest South Asian country. Then Pakistan is the third poorest. India is the fourth poorest. Bangladesh is the fifth poorest. And then we shall see where is Sri Lanka is here at 4,500. It is an upper middle income economy. So it is there. And then, of course, Bhutan is the second richest. And then Maldives, I think, is very, very rich. It's really up there in terms of per capita income, is, I think, close to, this is Mauritius, it's 12. Whereas Maldives is here at 19,000, which is the richest South Asian country. By these numbers, it should be as if that they are living a top class lifestyle. I don't know. I've never been to Maldives. I was planning to go, but then in January, I stayed back and in India, and then I went to Sri Lanka instead. Actually, we wanted to go to Maldives. My wife said, I want to go to a real country. Maldives doesn't look like a real country. It looks like a tiny piece of island. So we went to Sri Lanka. It was a wonderful trip. So this is the reason. So why is this happening? Why is India slipping from fourth to fifth and fifth to sixth? We made this case in this argument. I'll just sum up those things for you. Number one, it is happening because of the drop in dollars. Let me show you this data. You know, in 2014, when Prime Minister Modi was running for office, he used to make all these speeches saying that why is dollar falling from 57, 58 to 59, 60? Why is Indian rupee falling in comparison to dollar? It shows that the Prime Minister has lost credibility. Well, why doesn't he say that now? So I'm going to show you what is happening with the Indian dollar. So right now I'm showing you rupee to dollar. So this, in the last 1 year, this is the fall of the value of Indian rupees going down. And because the GDP is measured in dollars, not in rupees, if yen doesn't go down, so if you look at, say, the British pound, how would they have UK? Okay, I can't find United States dollar. Maybe they have it here, British. Anyway, if you look at the British pound, it is not falling as so if you look at the British pound, pound to dollar, 1 pound, the pound has been going up compared to the dollar. And that is one reason why England has overtaken the US. So as pound becomes stronger with regards to the dollar, the GDP the size of the GDP goes up. So if you look at the yen has remained where it is, up and down, up and down, up and down in 1 month. See, in 1 year, even, okay, fine, the yen has also gone down. So we can't use that as an excuse to explain why Japan has gone up. Maybe yen has fallen at a faster pace than rupee. But that is one reason why. So if you look at the case for rupee, this is 1 month, this is for 1 year. In the last 1 year, it has gone from 85 all the way to 93. It had gone to 95, but went down after the new rules were made by RBI. So it's now become 93. If you look for the last 5 years, so under Prime Minister Modi, the rupee has been falling and losing its value steadily. And so if you go back and see all the way to, this is the biggest drop was here. Which year was this? 2004. And then from there, oh no, this is where we have data. So from here, it's been falling, falling, falling. 2009, it was 40. And then you come to 2014, it was 60. This is when Modi came to power. So from 60, it has gone all the way down to 95. And so under Manmohan Singh, it went from 43 to 60. Not much compared to under Modi. But there will be no acknowledgement of that in the Indian economic discussions, etc. So one reason why the India's GDP ranking is going down is because the rupee is going down. Now there are different questions as to why the rupee is going down that we'll need a far more uh, far more analysis. That's number one. Number two is the reason for why this is happening is because they had to change the basis on which India maintains its data. So last year, IMF gave Indians data C. So India was using the year 2012 as a benchmark for measuring everything. And that was very old. So in 2025, the data that India was submitting to IMF was comparing things to the year 2012. Indian economy was very different in 2012, etc. So this year, the Indian government had no choice but to get away, because if India continued to have ratings of C, then India's borrowing, which India borrows a lot of money now, India's debt to GDP ratio has reached close to 90%. So if India is borrowing money from overseas, then that ranking affects, then India will be paying a higher interest rate. So they had to adjust. So they moved from the year 2012 to 2021-22. So India now has more recent data as a benchmark, like most other countries. And that brought India's total GDP a little bit down, a little, even though it increased India's growth rates, the total GDP went down. So that's the second reason why. So when we did that article saying India is not the fourth biggest economy anymore, that was because we were evaluating the impact of the changes in India's data. So when the Indian government, so the article that we published in the Diplomat, we also did a whole show in this. So in this article, we explain that how India's change of data, and if you see the show with Santosh Mehrotra and Amirullah Khan, we discussed in detail how India had changed the way it measures its data, and we will see what grade IMF gives for India's data quality. So that's the second reason why India. The third reason why India is having is because money is running away from India. For the last 5, 6 months, everything, foreign direct investments have been going down and foreign private investments have been going down. I have done 2 or 3 shows showing the data where this is happening. So under that data, you can see how things are going away. So people are pulling money out of India, and that reduces the value of Indian rupees, and that reduces the value of India's total GDP. So these are some, and then there are some structural weaknesses in terms of job creation. Millions and millions and millions of Indians leave India and go abroad in search of jobs. In the Gulf alone, there's 1 crore Indians. Can you imagine if they came back? Uh, would they be able to get 1 crore jobs in India? Some of those jobs are very high skilled, and all of them are highly paid jobs. So Indians going away abroad, migrating abroad, all of that is because of the weakness of the structural weaknesses in the economy. Plus, India still is a net importer, so India's imports are still more than its export. And one interesting thing about the Indian economy is that it is consumption driven, not production driven. So because it consumes, there is growth of in GDP, and a lot of India's GDP is coming from the government's spending on infrastructure. So the roads that they're building, the bridges and all those trains, etc., that you see Modi inaugurating, all the time. I inaugurates a tunnel here, a railway station there, an airport here, and all of that is infrastructure spending. It goes straight into the calculation of the GDP. What do you really need is GDP completely driven by by production also, not just consumption. So right now, this is where it is. I just wanted to share with you that as of today, India has slipped from number four or fifth. Officially, there was no announcement that India had become fifth, because in the beginning of the year, last year, at this time, the prediction was that India would become the fourth biggest. India did not become the fourth biggest. India had remained the fifth biggest, and now it has slipped to sixth biggest. If this war continues, if this war continues and we continue to see a decline in the Indian rupee, and if it does not come back up, then I don't know whether anybody is going to catch up. Let's see who is number seven. Number seven is France. In terms of GDP per capita, I don't think France is in a position to catch up. So India is six at 4.5 and France is 3.6. Oh, that's not very far behind. So France is at 3.6. I thought it was less than that. So anyway, India has a margin of about half a trillion or more for $550 billion lead on France. So India's growth rates are much higher. If you look at it, France's growth rate is less than 1%. India's growth rate projected is 6.48%. So if you look at it, only the US and China are growing above 1%. Oh my God. Just take a look at this data. This is stunning, absolutely stunning. You guys need to see this data as to how badly these countries are doing uh, in terms of growth. So if you look at the US, is doing at 2.32. So this is phenomenally high at $32 trillion. 2.32 will be 2%, would be 6.4 plus 1.26, $760 billion. That's a lot of money. The US is adding to its economy, $760 billion. So China is at 4.4% of $20 trillion. So that is 80. Yeah. So China is also adding about 880 billion per year. But look at Germany's growth rate, not even 1%. Look at Japan, not even 1%, 7.72, 0.73. Look at UK, all of this is less than 1% growth. India is then, look at 6.48. So India should be able to soon catch up with Germany and UK, maybe in 2 more years, unless the rupee falls further and there are some other bad news as a result of the war. And then France is also below 1%, and Italy is just 0.5%. So if you look at all the G7 countries, their growth rate is less than 1, except for the US. And then you look at BRICS countries, China is at 4.4, India is 6.48, and then you have Russia is 1%, Brazil is little less than 2%. So they're not really growing. Australia, 2%. Turkey is at 3.37, and then Indonesia is at close to 5%. So if you look at the top economies, Taiwan is at 5. They're all 2 to 3%, below 3%. Rarely, Saudi Arabia has gone to 3.2. So one thing that is that as your base begins to increase, your growth rates fall. But right now, India is not in that big category for it to feel as if that drop in GDP growth rate is justified. But like I said, if the war continues and if the price of oil remains up there, close to $100 a barrel, then we will see what kind of an impact it is going to happen. Today, I was talking to somebody from Madhya Pradesh, and he was saying that he lives in an apartment. He lives in a neighborhood where there is a guy who has a mobile kitchen or something on the road where he cooks food and gives. And the last 3 cylinders of LPG that he bought, he's buying them at 5,000 rupees, the commercial one. I thought that they were far less. I mean, the initial price was 900. So he's going to go out of business. The poor guy is not making any profit. He's continuing to buy 5,000 on the black market to continue to keep his customers. He's not making any profit. He's in fact making losses. So if this continues, if the war continues like this, Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, then a lot of poor people are going to get hurt very badly, and that's very, very scary. I was reading reports as to how migrant workers who went to the city to get jobs are unable to eat food because of the absence of LPG. And as a result of that, they are not even allowed to cook in their apartments and houses where they are renting. Some of them tried to bring wood into the houses to cook, and they were told you can't do that. So they are going back home. They are giving up their jobs and going back home because there is absolutely no food available. So these are some very serious consequences of this Iran war. If it continues even for 1 or 2 months, it could ruin the lives of many people and ruin many economies, especially developing economies. Sri Lanka is in trouble, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India. Some of those countries like Japan and others who have hoarded oil, and they might be doing reasonably well for some time, but this is becoming a global epidemic. So anyway, thank you for watching conversations. I hope you found this thought provoking. I know people in India, I don't know what's gone wrong with them these days. They become all mentally brain dead. When IMF says, oh, the India is becoming fourth biggest, they celebrate it and say, oh, this is great. And now they'll probably say, oh, this data doesn't matter. What matters is God knows what, maybe watching Durandar movie or something like that. But this is troubling and very, very worrisome, and the government has to change, or they have to either change the policies or change the government, because at this rate, you saw how poor India is, even though it has such a high GDP. It is just $2,800, and the rest of the top 10 countries, the poorest one is 18,000 per capita. It's 9 times or 7 times richer than India. So it is a very strange anomaly with such slow GDP per capita. That number is more important than the total GDP. It's like saying that there are 10 of us, and 10 of us make only 500 rupees per month. And that is, our total economy is 5,000 rupees per month. But if there's some one person or two people and they are making 4,500, whose life is better? That one person who is making 4,500 rupees per month, or 10 of you together who are making 5,000 rupees a month? That is India compared to other countries. Because you have 140 crore people, we just throw this big number saying, oh, we are the fourth or fifth biggest. UK's population, let me give you the exact number. You will be shocked. UK population in crores, like I say, should be around 7 crores, 6.9 crores. So UK's population is 7 crores. It's richer than India. In India, it's 140 plus crores. And it is roughly the same population. India's current estimated population is 147.6 crores. So look at this. India is 147 crores at 4.15 trillion. UK at just 7 crores, forget the 140 crores, at just 7 crores is a bigger economy. That is where prosperity is, that is development, that is wealth. So I'm very sorry to have shared this bad news with you, but it's all, the entire Indian media is covering that. Every newspaper, this is the headline everywhere: why India has slipped, how India has slipped. So I hope I was able to provide some more substance, and the sources of data I've showed you. I've also showed you how it varies, etc. So anyway, Thank you for watching Conversations. Please like this channel, subscribe to the channel, and then share this video with your socio-political network. Until next time, I'm your host, Muqtada Khan. Take care. Bye.